Welcome back. We're writing Little Man Computer in C++ to help me learn the language a bit better. And so far we've completed the computer section and the first steps on the road to having a little man. But I watched back a bunch of the videos recently and spotted a few little things that I wasn't particularly happy with. And I thought I might take this episode to just address some of those items. But first, I realized that I hadn't committed the changes from last time, so we should probably start there. So, what did we actually do? We started creating a little man, essentially. And the first test was interpreting the output instruction. Okay, so let's commit that. Little man interpretation, maybe, of output instruction. Yeah, good, excellent. So another item that I noticed in our tests was that some of the tests referred to modulo 999, when of course it should actually be modulo 1000. There we go. So for example, test add resulting in value greater than 999 results in modulo 999. Of course that should be modulo 1000, and I believe there were a couple of other cases accumulator with the modulo 1000 result, and of course changing them here as well. Oh no, not that one. That one. And that one. And just check we haven't broken anything. That all looks good. I will just commit those changes. Git commit fix test naming for modulo 1000. Good. Next, in our modulo here, we of course decided that you can never actually have something outside of the range minus 999 to plus 999, because the values that you can put into the accumulator can't be beyond there, beyond one modulo out. So in which case we can just simplify this, I believe, to just essentially 1000 plus our value modulo 1000. We can of course just simply check that, and that works fine. Let's just commit that change. Simplify modulo function for constraints of computer. That's fine. And another thing that I also spotted was the possibility in our set accumulator and reset negative flag. We skipped over doing using that function for setting the accumulator on subtraction, because we were setting negative explicitly, and I thought perhaps this would be a good opportunity to use default arguments in a function such that we could have some sort of uniformity. in the code, and in which case we can do something like const bool. Oh, this is slightly awkward because we don't want to get the naming wrong. Const bool flag, little forced, but we can do this, and I've missed the important part. We should be able to do that, and then that being the only change. And of course we need to change the definition in the header file. To the same thing, const bool flag. Do we have to do that here? I'm not sure whether we need to mirror the default argument or not. So what is the issue? Redefinition of default argument. Now I don't know which side we put the default argument in. So let us try it here. That seems to get the job done, and then we can, and we've already tested that it works using that default argument, because everything currently has false as the value that uses it. So what we can now do is here we can do set accumulator and so on, and then we can, oh, I've been a bit keen there, and then we should be able to just say result less than 0 thusly, and now everything is using that same function, and given that's specifically what it's doing, we can rename the argument more sensibly back to just set accumulator, like so, and the same here. Will be set accumulator and reset negative flag with set accumulator, like so, and there we go. So that's a little bit nicer, I think. I'll commit that. Commit and use default flag argument when setting accumulator. Excellent. And then the final thing, perhaps a little bit more involved, is this this annoyance of having to type in the tests essentially twice, well, the name of the test twice. And I had this idea whilst cycling home from the office yesterday, that perhaps what we could do is we could store all of the tests as an array of lambdas, of named lambdas, such that we would just have to loop through that array, and we could run the tests that way, rather than having to have each test defined and then called. So I thought I'd give that a go and see if it pans out. So we've already been a little naughty on the semi-global variables here, so I think we'll carry on with that just for the purposes of this test to see if it works. So what we want is we want something along the lines of a struct called test that has a string name and also has a function, a void function, which we can call run. So we have a name for the test, and we can run the test. Now we'll need to include, I think it's functional, and we will need to include a string as well, so that we can print out the strings. Let's just check that that's okay as a definition. Yep, there's no complaints about that as long as I've saved before doing so. Yep, so that looks okay. So now what we can do is we can create a does it matter if it's a vector or an array? I'm sure it does, but let's say a vector of test called tests. Just getting creative with the naming there. And in here, what we should be able to do, and while remembering it, let me just include vector. And what we can do in here is we should be able to do something along the lines of saying test name, comma, and then some form of lambda, like so. Excellent, and that works. So let's just then at the bottom here, just above this, what we can do is we can say for test in the tests, I'm going to rename that so that it's clear it's some sort of global, and we can say write out the test name. Is that going to be how we want it? Yep. That's how we're doing it already, isn't it? And then we can call test run. In principle, we can do this. And we didn't rename the test cases, but that's fine. Now, what is our error? Use of undeclared identifier. That's because it's tests, not test. Excellent, and we have our test name being printed out there. So let's just to see how it works, just to convert the first test properly. So we've got this test here, and we can now get rid of that slightly annoying way of writing test names. So we can say program counter is initially set to 0, which immediately reads much more nicely. And then what we can do is, how are we going to lay this out in a way that looks nice? I suspect we're going to have to do strange things until we find the right formatting. So what if I were to do that? Does that maintain its formatting properly? Yes. Okay, so if we take that and see if that runs, I think it'll whinge about not having access to the state. No, it's happy with that. Yeah. What does the operator... It's written something slightly strange there. I wonder what that's all about. What I'm going to do, just to make things slightly easier, is I'm going to temporarily comment out the other tests so we can see if the right thing is going on here. Yep. Oh, hello, we've got an annoyance of large amounts of unused test functions. That's fine, we can deal with that straightforwardly. And there we go. So we've got one test, no failures. It's just printed the word operator in a slightly unexpected manner. I wonder where that's coming from. So that bit's fine. Let's just comment out that line. So it prints the word operator there. And then we've got the test run here. Ah, I know what's happened. After all that messing around, we've been a little bit keen with our copy and pasting. We've copied the print the function name, which it would appear as operator in this case, which is quite interesting. So that now prints correctly and counts up the tests correctly. Good. So that seems to be a pretty good mechanism for running the tests, I think. So let's go through the slightly weighty activity of converting the tests. And I wonder if I can do this as some sort of macro operation here. So bear with me for a moment. I'll record something. We want to delete the first two words, don't we? So if we delete, and then we insert a brace and a double quote, and then we go to the end, delete those two and put a double quote and then a comma, and then we can do enter that bit. Then we need to go to the end here and insert that, no, just one of those, and a comma. I think that's just about correct. And then we need to do something slightly... no, that wasn't intended. Let's just record that macro as is for now and see if that works on the next one. That certainly looks promising, doesn't it? And let's actually check if I were to copy those into here, that it will do the right sort of thing. That looks not miles away. We'll want to do a little bit of tidying. So let's see if those tests run. Yes, they do. That's lovely, isn't it? We will need to rename the tests afterwards, but I think that's a good starting point. So we can delete those because we've already moved them, and then we can do that. I wonder if you can run. Oh, here's an interesting idea. Can you run a macro from a macro? So if I were to record, so I go here and I to record a new macro, which started by doing that twice, followed by running another macro, has that done the expected thing? Seems to do every other one. I'm going to undo all that because I have no faith that that's done anything vaguely sensible. So we got to here and it was fine. That's up to these two. So we've got those. So I think it's probably safe just to re-record the macro here, isn't it? So if we go starting from here, we want to say that. No, we don't. Let's try that again, shall we? We want to go to static. So we want to say, let's record a macro. We want to start by inserting some things like so, and then we delete 2 words. We go to the end, we quote and do that. We do that. We do that this time. Then we go to the end. We then do that. We then do that. Now, how does that work for us? Probably should have made sure that I go to the beginning of the line before that macro, but we'll see what it does. So if I were to do that, that looks okay, doesn't it? And then we'll go through. That's not quite what I meant. And into the branching ones. And do that last one maybe. And perhaps do this one slightly more manually, just as it's the last one and there seems to be some strange behavior. I see, yeah, it's because going to the end of that section didn't quite work because of that Good. So now, if I go to here and yank that out and put it at the bottom of this, and format, and we'll see what happens. That looks promising, doesn't it? Have I typoed anywhere? That is the big question. Oh, isn't that lovely? So we have all of the tests and none of the requirement to type in the function test, the test function name twice. So let's get rid of the commented out stuff, as we don't need it anymore. Can I do something clever here? No. I thought I could be clever, but I couldn't. I wasn't quite clever enough. A little bit more Vim learning needed. So if I delete that, and then delete that, like so, and check I haven't over deleted. Now we have lost our partitioning between the computer tests and the little man tests, but I'm not too worried about that for now. I think that's okay. So let me see what we need to do just to tidy the formatting up here. I think it's just a case of that, and everything else is okay. So if I go to there, oops. If I go to there and do that, is that better? Yes. So now I can just do that using the incredibly powerful doc command provided by Vim. And I think that'll give us a position to be able to carry on from. Let's just give that a quick check to make sure there's nothing untoward going on. We've created this new struct called test with a name and a lambda, and then we've created an array of these tests, or a vector of these tests, and we have names. The names are currently the same as the methods were, except the first one where we were sensible and changed it. But I think I shall leave them as they are for now, because we've got to the point where we can continue adding things and giving them proper names, and every once in a while we'll just nip in and rename something so that it's a little bit nicer. But that gets us back on course, so we can carry on writing tests a little bit more smoothly, and which we will do next time.